Good Tuesday morning, all my peeps. I'm doing this video this morning at a request of a customer. He had watched my shimming video on the transmissions, and even though liked it, he's having a little trouble getting his transmission together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble a transmission step by step and reassemble it. We're not going to talk about gear condition or snap rings or anything like that condition or shimming it or whatnot. Just basic disassembly and assembly and let it go from there. Now, before I start, I'm going to bring up a couple of things. Most people know this. Some still do not. On the transmissions, your early style gears are one way, your later style gears in 5th and 6th are another. Mainly this gear and this gear. If you look, you can see the little notch cut in the very center of the gears, almost like they spun it and cut it with a disc. But your later style gears have these notches cut in them on both the sliders on your counter shaft and your 5th and 6th on your main shaft. They have to all be a match set. You can't have half of one, half of the other, one of one, one of the other. They need to be a match set. And this would be your 5th and 6th main shaft. I'm going to get these out of the way. And you can see there is no line cut in these gears here. So this would be an early model set for the main shaft for 5th and 6th. And the others would be the same way, no markings on them. So that's one thing. The second thing when it comes to the transmissions is you've got two sizes of the retainers that look identical, exception of one is slightly larger than the other. Now, this one is used simply as a spacer washer. This one is used in conjunction with your keeper that has the tabs on it. That way when it turns, put it in, lock it over, and then your little locker washer goes in and keeps it in place. So anytime that you have this little locker, you have to use the larger of the two. And then every time you need it just as a washer or backer behind the snap ring, that's where this one comes into play. So wanted to make that clear to people that didn't understand that. So, okay, on to the show. I'm going to start with the main shaft. I like to put hose clamps on it. Let me back up and say that Honda has, 250R has a thrust washer on 1, 2, 3 sides. There is not one that goes next to first gear here on the main shaft. Some bikes don't use 3. Some bikes only use a couple. But on a Honda, you have the thrust washers on both of the counter shaft and only one on the main shaft. So let's get into it, shall we? Oop, helps if I got the right size. Okay, thrust washer on the end. I'm trying to watch my phone and do this, and hopefully this comes in on the video okay. So thrust washer, we have small second gear. And this is where we have the keeper. It just slides straight off. And then the washer that you have to rotate to pull off. Oh, see, we already lost a little spacer there. I'm going to stick that back on. You have a bushing that goes inside 5th gear. So I'm actually going to set that down like so you can kind of see how it all lines up there. And then we have the spacer washer. And then we have us a clip. Now on these clips, they're a real pain in the butt, okay? There's no other way to put it. And there's no really good way to get them off. The best thing to do is try to get good at removing them without over squeezing them open, because you can bend them. But a little practice goes a long way with these things. And also a good pair. I've got a pair of Blue Points. What are these? The PR32A. But a good pair has got the tips that actually point away from each other a little bit, and it makes them so much easier. So that goes a long ways. And here's our, what they call our 3/4 pinion. And as it makes sense, one drives third, one drives fourth. This would be third gear, this would be fourth gear. So, and we have us another washer here. Now, what I do is I actually like to push against the gear while I wiggle the washer and try to get it to come off that way. But they can be a real bear sometimes. But once you get it going, then it comes off no problem. I talked about location and how to turn these snap rings and stuff in my shimming video, so I'm not going to go over any of that. And then we have another spacer washer. And then we have 6th gear. Now, I'm going to go over something else. This particular 6th gear has a bushing that goes in it, and it has a factory spacer or washer, thrust washer, to take up and make it a little snug here. Now, these are factory. There will not always be a washer behind 6th gear. Some's got them, some's don't. So just, if yours don't have one, don't freak out about it. Now, here's the other thing. You could have a 6th gear that does not have a bushing in it. Instead, it is made as part of the gear. They did a change. So this one is a early model gear, but I do have a gear with the line cut in it that has got this same design here and does not have the bushing. So somewhere they made a change. Usually it's around 87, because 87 can be a bastard year for some stuff. You know, could be one way, could be the other way. But so if you've got 6th gear that only has this like so, that can be correct also, but it still may or may not have a washer behind it. So hope that helps that part out. So I don't want to confuse anybody. So reassembly is pretty easy. Little thrust washer goes on there. Bushing. And if you happen to get goofed up, you can't put this bushing, I mean, even though it'll fit, it goes all the way down to this point, and then she stops because the grooves aren't cut. So you would know that that's not the right bushing for that application. So pop 6th gear here. And then we've got our washer. And then our goody little ring clip here. These ring clips are still available new from Honda. So I would suggest, if you're going to do your own transmission, go ahead and get you a couple, or get you enough to do a set, maybe along with, you know, a couple extra so that you can practice and not bend them up. So there is an orientation on these clips, but there again, I'm not going into that right now. And then your small gear always faces 6th. So that just slides on, nothing to hold it, because your center shift fork will only allow it to go back and forth far enough to engage 5th and 6th. So, after so, we got ourselves another snap ring. Take however much time you need to do this. Then our washer. Here's 5th gear, which has to face. Remember, the dogs have to grab each other there to drive, so make sure you get it on correctly. Bushing goes in. You can put the bushing on first or last, it don't matter. Locking washer. And make sure to turn it. Once you get it lined up, just spin it until it opens up besides the grooves. And then your little locking washer can go on there. And then that's just held on from not having enough room to back off. And then there's your small 2nd gear. And there's your thrust washer. And we'll stick that back on. Main shaft is apart back together correctly. So that's that one. Now, let's head on over to our counter shaft. We have 1st gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and then our engagement sliders. Basically 1 to third, 2 to 4. So, whoops. Oh man, I just about did it there. About knocked off my camera. All right. There again, we got us a thrust washer. First gear, large gear. And then there is a bushing for that. Now on your counter shaft, only one on each side, right behind the very first gear and second gear, there is a special washer that has the 2 little notches cut for oiling. So try to get that up there where that can be seen. You can see that. So those are very important, and make sure that they go behind that bushing. So I'm just laying it out so people can see. Now, your smooth side of the slider always faces inwards, as you can see on both sides, there and there. So this would be your 1 to 3 slider. And we're going to pop off third gear here. Third gear is usually a gear that wears. Third and fourth are pretty bad about wearing. See, I'm going to drop down here. I may make 3 rows. So we got us a clip. We got us a spacer washer, which is trying to stick to the gear, like so. And then we have that, which is third. We have the bushing for third. And then here's what holds fourth gear in place. We have us one of these locking washers, and then turn this washer, slide it off, and then fourth gear comes off. Now, every single fourth gear has a little thin spacer washer on it, and that is to keep that gear from wearing against that shaft. That is the only reason why it's there. It's a little hardened washer, only about 20 thousandths thick, but it must go back in the right place. Now, normally I would just go ahead and pull everything from the other side, but I want to show how this side comes apart just like the other side. So I'm going to pull this off. Washer, thrust washer. Here's our large second gear. Then we have a bushing. And then there is the larger special washer with the notches cut in it. And then the slider comes off. And that leaves you with a nice bare shaft. Now you can, a lot of times I'll put these on the polishing wheel and clean them just to kind of help get the little burrs and stuff off of it. Use a rough rouge. These shafts are very, very hard, so you don't really hurt them. You just about got to put a grinding wheel to them to hurt them, if you know what I mean. So, all right, well, we're going to go back in reverse then. So, slider goes on. And then there is our special washer. There is our bushing. Second gear. And then our thrust washer. And I like to use hose clamps. You can use zip ties. Hose clamps definitely never come off. Once you pull a tranny out, you put hose clamps on it. You don't ever have to worry about stuff falling apart, because what most novices do is first time they pull them apart, heck, second or even third time you pull them apart, you can pop the tranny out, and of course stuff just starts flying everywhere, so it becomes a real mess. So I like to, even when I pull one case out, go ahead and put a hose clamp on the one end that's got a washer. That way that end doesn't fall apart, and I leave it on there when I reinstall and take it off last before I put the second case half on. So all right, we'll spin her around here. Our little shim washer goes here. Here's fourth gear. Don't forget that it has to face the slider so that it engages on, the dogs engage on the gear. And then here's our little keeper washer. Put it on, turn it, And then our little lock washer goes on, like so. Then we have us a bushing. And then here is third gear. And then this one is just a washer to put on the back side of the snap ring. Let me grab my pliers. Get this thing worked back on. And yeah, don't worry. No matter how many of these transmissions you've done, sometimes these snap rings just give you fits. That's just Mr. Honda's way of thanking you, I think. But so slider, don't forget, faces in both sides. And then we have our special little small washer with the cutouts that goes on. We have our bushing for first gear. We have our first gear. And then we have our thrust washer. And put an end on there. So basically, as it sets in, as we all know, basically it would kind of set like this. And they call these constant mesh transmissions because the name implies it all. Every gear is in constant mesh with another gear. They never get out of mesh. So hope that helps everybody to understand that a little bit better. And I'll be trying to put up more videos here in the near future. Thank you.